Hey everybody, sitting here in the pregame
Feedback loop.
looks like a pretty light morning this morning. Hope you're doing well where you're at. Hope you're properly safely socially distancing. It's the social distance version of the feedback loop. We not a very busy morning this morning, but you know most weekends are pretty relaxed. Do have a few people,
Kara's back in here. I thought we had an Eve submission, but it turns out Eve. We talked about Eve on Friday. So
I messed that one up.
Otherwise, things are going pretty well here.
Hope you are doing well where you are. I'm just waiting on the old couch pot to fire. Not a lot of news. It's pretty chill. Do have some new videos coming out. Put a lot of focus on career-minded things now that the economy is opening back up, and trying to get you folks in a great position to springboard forward as these design jobs are back on the market. So we're jumping right back in here, and I'm gonna go ahead. Looks like CouchBot has fired, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's just do this. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. So glad to have you along. Pretty light morning this morning, as most Monday mornings tend to be. Kara's in here, and I thought I had a couple of others, but it turns out those were artifacts from last week that I simply forgot to check those off. But we were clear, so that's good. Kara is working on her Fresh Market project, and she's got some questions. She's in that components state of things where she's basically rebuilding the base parts of her project so that they're easily adaptable and updatable. And let's go ahead and take a look at where she's at. Share my screen, and let's jump right in here. Actually, this is Eve. Eve, always good to see you. But now we're over here to Kara, and Kara basically she's got her homepage pretty much finished, and really the key for Kara's homepage is this try a sample aspect. So basically she's trying to push everybody to go through and get to the try a sample flow. Now for Kara's page, try a sample, it says try a sample before signing up. On us, simply enter your details to get started, and then she's got this this name, email, next. So she's got a stepper created here to quickly walk you through it. She noticed that she has changed her selector style here, so I'd select meat or vegetarian, and then I'd hit next. It's interesting, Kara. It looks like next is already active. So I do wonder if you mean to have this in an inactive state, and then when these are filled in, then this becomes an active state. These are also really placed far apart. I think especially when you have the form is in a shortened variety, you can if you have an error message, it's really easy to say, to highlight where the error is, and then you could put the text down here and say, please enter a valid email address, or please enter a valid name, and be careful with what is a valid name. Be careful with those. That can get you in a lot of trouble. People do not like it when their name is called invalid. This is interesting. So select select the delivery day. I'm guessing that your organization isn't delivering on Sunday, which is fine. It's no big deal. But I just want to point out that there's 6 days there, so that there must have been a conscious decision made to not deliver on Sunday, and then finally the delivery address. And again, this is where it's pretty spaced out. So I would encourage you to tighten that up and basically leave the error message at the bottom. And then success. We have received your sample. We have received your sample request. Check your email for confirmation and shipping details. One thing you'll probably figure out pretty fast is that you're going to want a minimum height on these for your page. So when we look at this on screen, what you don't want is you never want these things to pop up from the bottom. And it's kind of hard for me to. I could put it in prototype mode, but I'm just trying to fake it right here. But essentially, you've got something like this, and it's gonna have that sliver at the bottom. I would always make sure that the height is significant enough so that I'm never getting into that bouncy bottom thing. So set a minimum height, and you'll be fine. So with that said, I do think I want to look at your other sign up pages here. I would encourage you to use some sort of variant on the button so that you have so it isn't filled out, and then the moment it's filled out, then this is activated. Right now it looks like it's permanently activated. Same thing here. I would tighten these up. I would tighten these up so the error message would ride below. Looks like Kara, and then you've selected, and then you're going down, and yeah. So again, I don't think this button should be active until you fill out the thing, fill out the form. I think these should be tighter with an error message in between if you need it. I would like to see what an error message would look like. I think that it's important to have that. One of the things you're going to hear from your team, if you're working with a developer or whatnot, you'll hear about empty states, you'll hear about error messages. So you want to have that in there. What happens when there is an error message? Where does it go? Does it go in between? Does it go at the bottom? Does it go off to the side? What's going on? Now, obviously, as you get into this is looking really nice, to be completely honest with you. I see what an inactive state kind of looks like here with your toggles. So delivering this week, and here are the dishes that you could have delivered. It looks like these are inactive. So that's fine. It also so now I understand. You said in your notes you were looking at a couple of different directions here. One would be how do you select these things? Are they all like full opacity? And then when you select one, it's outlined and you get a little check mark. I think this is where, we think back to accessibility. When we talked about accessibility in forms, and we talked about adding something to it to indicate that it was selected or active, not just simply relying on color. This is much the second version is much closer to that than the first. The first with the faded out images, and then they're full. That's not going to work in some instances. I do realize it comes up in value, in opacity, but that's not as clear as literally adding that check mark. So I do think that it says view current order and edit future selections. View current order and edit future selections. So I'm a little confused because we've gone from current week to the next week, but we fundamentally changed how these are being selected. So there's that I'm not completely certain about. Let's keep looking here. Looks like this is still, yeah, that's still being worked on. For my money, Kara, I really think that the second the version 2 here, with the check marks being added as you go through and select each of the meal cards, I think that's much closer to what you're looking for. The other one with the fade, I'm not as crazy about. So again, and this goes back to what we again talked about in the accessibility checkpoints. Add something to it to indicate selection. Don't rely just on color. Okay. So that's actually pretty good. I do think that again, this shouldn't be illuminated as ready to go to the next stage until this form has been filled out. So I would make that adjustment. I would also encourage you to show what an error message looks like in these instances. I like the fact that you shift it to like a radio button here for meat and veg. Same thing for select delivery day. You know, I yeah, I can't think. I'm giving you a free meal. I'm not giving you 10 free meals. So I'm going to guess that you're only going to select one day. If you want to make that clear, you could say select a delivery day, like select one, um, and move forward. But I think overall, tightening up again, I would tighten up the space and put any potential error message at the bottom. I wouldn't put them in line, simply because of what happens when you get into situations like this, like where it gets really long. I do like the fact that you've set up a stepper, and also be on the lookout for page height on these relatively shallow pages. I think page height is something you want to look out for. But yeah, I think you're making a lot of progress here. Just to think of beginning of last week, this was just completely a wireframe, and you were kind of still unsure of fonts and color, and now it's starting to take form. I think the next place that we're looking at is those individual pages. What happens when you click on one of these, and I believe you've got that down here. Figma's taking a second to think about what it wants to. Yeah, it's right here. These menu pages, where you're diving in a little deeper on a particular item. I think that's one of the next areas that you can head to. But it's looking good. A lot of great progress has been made, and really, I'm looking out for what is this going to do. How far can we get this week with this? Can we get to the point where you've got Eve and Luigi working on their prototypes? I would love to see everybody cross-testing your prototypes with one another. I think there's a lot that we can learn when you are, while you're not in a quote class together. You, Eve, and Luigi have never sat down for a lecture with me. As a group, I do think this is a spot where you've all done good work, and I'd like to see you comparing notes basically now. This is kind of what I've tripped across, or this is something that I've noticed. You're all ready to begin giving feedback to one another on a more technical level. So I'm excited to see that. And I think you're very close to. I'm hopeful by the end of the week, we can set up a call and say, hey, why don't we have Eve or review your work, or why don't you have Luigi review it? So that means you're going to have to, go back to think about, okay, so what am I testing? What pages do I have to have finished here so that I can complete a test? So again, we're going back to the arc of the product and looking at, okay, what are the things that I can do to finalize this into a working prototype. And luckily you've got that mapped out down here. So with that said, you've got the next logical steps to move forward, and there's not a lot I can add for you at this point. It's just now, it's continued execution. Okay.
And I'm gonna check the feedback loop channel to see if we've got anything else submitted. We do not. Although Lisa had one question that kind of flew in from the side. I want to
Take a second to address that. It was about alignment, and Lisa, it's going to take me a second to where did the internets go? Oh, there it is. So let's go to Squarespace. So Lisa's working in Squarespace, and I think it's always interesting to take a look at some of the stuff that's going on here, because Lisa's got a unique situation where she's working on this odd jobs project, and what you'll notice here is odd jobs, as it's currently structured, is it looks like it's a laptop with a GIF inside of it, but this is actually where we've put some custom CSS work into play, and you can tell that odd jobs is not, the GIF is not quite the same size as the laptop, and that's because these are in fact two different elements that we're targeting. So one is this block YUI, and you've got this long string of numbers after it. And you're probably wondering, well, Chris, where did you get that, and why does it matter? So if we go to Lisa's site, I'm just going to go to Lisa. If I could spell, there you go. So this is her actual site. If we click in here, so here's the page. Let's go ahead and inspect element, and I'll show you where this is coming from. You can see as it shrinks down, it's like just blinking up above the top of that. Don't worry, the idea is that we're going to fix that. So if you're following along, but you get these block level elements. So right now this is the block, and if I turn the z-index off, or if I move it to -5, you'll see that GIF flips to the front. So this block has to be the laptop, okay? And this is where you have to inspect the element to then see what you actually have to work with. In this particular case, we had it at 2, so we'll flip it back around. What we really want is we want the block for that GIF. We've got to find it now. So that's the laptop mask. So this is the actual GIF, I believe. We've got to kind of click down here and see where it's at. Yeah, this is the actual GIF itself. So the GIF, we haven't, I have not at this point begun to attempt to size the GIF. Like its height is, its width and its height is 100%. Is it something that I could say, hey, I want it to be 100? Yeah, okay. So now I'm stretching it, and there it is at 10, 100, you get the idea. The left position here is interesting to me. So if I shift it to 5, I can kind of move it around, and top is so the question here is can I get this to kind of position itself and begin to kind of morph it into this frame. And what we're doing here is we're just kind of, it's one of these weird cycles where because this GIF is not the same size as the laptop frame itself, I'm having to do some odd stretching. So what this means is we either need to alter the size of the laptop to match the size of the GIF, or we need to alter the size of the GIF to match the size of the laptop. So Lisa, this is why it's not quite matching up. All right. So if I really wanted this to match up, I've got to kind of do these weird little adjustments that currently stretch it, and I don't really like the idea of stretching it. Mainly because when you look at it, it holds the frame size. So while I can stretch it side to side, I can't really stretch it top to bottom. You see how poorly it's showing up now. So if I put it back at 100, it's still the same height, and I believe it's the same height because the block itself right here has a particular height to it. So if I say height, and let's put a pixel size on this. If I say 400 pixels, if I say 600 pixels, 700 pixels, so that's doing nothing to it. Let's come in here. So here's the block image. So it says 600. So there, I can change the height at that point. So that's interesting. But notice that it now has made it a lot wider. So, this figure ID, and that's another thing. It's very clear that Squarespace is using IDs for everything. So if we come down, I'm going to target that. I'm going to say height, 700 pixels. Okay. Now, that 700 pixels should have changed that. But another thing that I've noticed is that aside from the block level items, the things that are inside of the block, they tend to change names. So it's like every time, the block on the block level, you can feel pretty confident that when you update these elements, that they're going to basically do the same thing that you wanted them to do. Let's come in here and do that process again. And again, this is kind of where I need you to go in through and editing this. So let's get back here. Here's your block level. That's the laptop. So we're going to come down, and here's the GIF, right? And what we're looking for here. Okay. So 228. 228 and 228. So luckily it's staying the same size. Was that a max height or a height? Max width. Okay, so that was max width that changed to 600. So, and when we changed max width, that's right. So when we changed the max width, it was changing the height because the two are connected. All right, so that means once the width has been adjusted, that allows us to come in and say, all right, well, this is the This is the image itself. And with the width adjusted, if I came through and then said 96, and again we're watching it move around here. We'll put it left 5%. Okay, that I wish that I could pause the GIF, but I don't necessarily think that I can. So I'm looking for the edges on this. Yeah, left 10% with, I hate to say with 80, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. And when this resets, I can still see that it's above. Okay, so with 85, top 2, 4, 5. So it looks like it's starting to fit in there now. Problem I've got here, obviously, is I don't really like the fact that it's stretched. That should have put it back into proportion, but now we've got this little bit of hiccup at the bottom. But I think it's kind of interesting. Now, I'm not a Squarespace junkie. I'm applying my knowledge of CSS to Squarespace. But this is much more in line with what we would hope would happen. The interesting thing, or what I think is interesting, and I'm going to copy this over to, and I'm also going to target. Let's see. Trying to think of how I can target that. I'm guessing I can target this ID here, which is 227. So if we come in here and we talk about, okay, well, now I need 227 and then image, because I'm targeting the GIF that's inside. Now I want to say top 7%. And the question is, does that move it down enough? Top 4. And this was actually max width. So max width here. Here it is. Figure. Okay, so it's in a figure block or figure element. I just want to copy that over directly as it currently is setting there. It's just not quite getting the same width. I think part of that is the fact that it's, you know, when we're looking at it on screen over here, this is at a narrower measure. So I'm going to flip the controls down to the bottom. Right? And now, obviously, now it's a lot different. Okay, that's because we're going to need a media query on this as well to get this to line up. But it becomes kind of hard to, kind of see where you're going. So at full width, you know, if we said, okay, this is 800, this is 900, 900 is getting into the realm of the right size. But then we've got this things happening to the image class. So if we said top 0 or top minus 10%, and now you're beginning to get closer to it. The question is, because it's a GIF, I have to wait for, yeah, I can tell that it's outside of the bounds. So and the width is still off here. So what if we said 75, and then we said left is 20, left is 15. Still a little wide. So 70, you know, no, 73. Still cut off a little bit down here at the bottom, because we'll see when it comes back up. We now have it inside, but see that clip? So again, you know, the question is, do we change? I really think you're down to, we need to truncate the height of the actual laptop because it doesn't match the height of the GIF. So this would be a reload up, or basically reload the laptop to replace it with something that's smaller, so that you're getting rid of, again, you've got this edge over here, so that needs to be adjusted as well. This is what happens when you take two things that weren't designed together and you try to fit them closer and closer and closer together. At some point, you have to go in and make these adjustments. And you know, all of these adjustments are in CSS. So you know, that's one of the things about Squarespace. Yes, it will get you close to the target, but at some point, when you want something custom, you got to be able to come in and be able to jump into this box and know how to target the blocks, because if you can't target the blocks, there's not a whole lot that you can do. And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to target, how to effectively target this this image block. Oops, I keep jumping away like it's going to take me to some other thing. But here's image, figure. I wonder if I could just target figure and get there. So we'll say figure. Yeah, it's, I wonder. Again, I'm trying to match what it's giving me over there and here in the editor or in the inspector. So I can put it to 900. That's an element style that Squarespace is applying to it. Is that coming from somewhere else, though, is the question. Yeah, so I can edit it on screen. I can edit it over here on screen, but it's not necessarily taking it here. So the things that are at block level, I can kind of adjust for. Like for instance, here if I said 250, it literally drops it. So I can get Squarespace to do my bidding. Like now it's up here in the nav. I can get Squarespace to do some of my bidding, but it's fighting me in other spots. So the easiest thing to do, would be, if you want to avoid all this, take the GIF, take the laptop, resize the laptop, record a video of it, load it up. That's the easiest way to fix this, because then you won't have to worry about the media queries. But I want to take a second to kind of show you, okay, so here's what it would take in the CSS to get these two things to line up. Because without this information as it's currently structured, I'll just delete it away. You get this, okay? These two things are just stacked. When you put this negative margin on it, it'll move it up, but you really have to come in here and continue to futz with it, and then it's not quite big enough. Like, and again, because your GIF has no background on it, I have to wait for it to get back to that one screen that has the orange, or it has the click to see it. Because right now it's like, okay, now I can see how it lines up. All right, so that's the challenge you're up against. I would, you know, I know we have a call tomorrow, so we can discuss about which direction you want to go. But I didn't want to just say, oh, you can't do it that way. I wanted to actually show what's possible. Okay. All right. And
I'm gonna check feedback loop one more time.
looks like that's it, folks. So Kara, thanks for submitting that work in today. Lisa, thanks for your Squarespace questions over the weekend.
Oh, hey.
Thank you, Melanie. Melanie says the job search spreadsheet is the bomb. It is kinda. The one thing I'll say about job searches is the reason that you use a spreadsheet isn't because I just love spreadsheets. It's because, typically speaking, let's say you applied to one job per day until you found one. Okay. I said this literally in the video. Days will turn into weeks. Okay? Days will turn into weeks. And there's two ways you can look at it. Either I'm going to forget the details because of the pure volume of jobs I'm applying for, or I'm going to forget the details because of the time passed. Many jobs will go up and nobody will reply for 21 days. Okay? And if they do reply, they're not replying. It's an auto reply just saying, hey, we got your thing. Nobody's looked at it. If you get an auto reply like, thanks for submitting, nobody's looked at it. It's just sitting there. Okay? So 21 days later, you get a request for an introductory email or introductory phone call. And you're like, hey, that's awesome. I don't even remember applying for this. What is this? And you're going through, looking through your notes, trying to frantically figure out, what did you apply for? When you have a spreadsheet, this stuff's just like housed in a spot, and you can get right back at the speed, spending a minute with your spreadsheet, and go, oh yeah, I remember this one. I liked this one. I didn't like this one. There was something that bugged me about this one. There was something interesting about this one. I know somebody who works at that company. It's in the spreadsheet. I'm going to go ask them because now I have a reason to reach out. When nobody replies, you also use a spreadsheet. Hey, I wonder what happened to this one. I was really interested in this one. I know somebody who works at that place. I'm going to reach out. And then when you get requests for interviews and other things, you have a place to continue to go back to. Okay, here's the research I had from last time I talked to them. Job searches are real, and Melanie, I know you know this all too well, and so many of you that are watching this, whether you're in the program or you're watching it over on YouTube and just kind of following along, you've been laid off. COVID wrecked the business you were working in, and maybe that business had nothing to do with design. That's okay. Now you're heading into design. You're going to need to remember the details of the places that you've applied and the things that you found out. I don't want you doing double work. And that's what always happens when you're not properly performing the job tracking duties. You're doing double work. And I don't like double work. Double work is a waste of your time. You could be applying that time to doing other things. So let's eliminate the double work. Okay? All right, folks. Thanks for the kudos there, Melanie. Thanks for the submissions, Kara. Thanks for the question, Lisa. And I will hopefully see everybody tomorrow. I got a dentist thing coming up today. So tomorrow is TBA, okay? Or TBD, to be determined. I'm hopeful that I'm able to, talk. But anytime you've got people, it's a root canal. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Anytime you got one of those, Might be a little, yeah, might be a little, tomorrow. So we'll see. But that's gonna wrap it up. Chris Courtney, feedback loop, new pragmatic. I'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Take care.